Welcome to Straight from the Source. Our guest this week is Joanna Francescut with formerly with Shasta County, right, but running again for Shasta County Registrar of Voters.
Yep, County Clerk and Registrar of Voters.
There's a lot of jobs with this, right,
well,
basically?
There's 2 jobs, basically.
So you're always busy.
I'm always busy.
And you've done it before, because you were the interim for a while.
Yeah, I wasn't technically the interim.
Okay.
I was always the assistant county clerk. No one said, hey, Joanna, you're the interim.
Okay, but when Kathy stepped down for some health issues, you took over, essentially.
I stepped in until she was ready to retire,
Okay.
And really formally retire. And then the Board of Supervisors appointed somebody else to be the county clerk.
Okay,
So,
yeah. Well, we'll get into that. Let's kind of just start from the beginning. I mean, you and I were talking. You've been in Shasta County for nearly 2 decades now, right? This is where you're raising your family. Tell me, first of all, what you love about the area.
I am a nature person. So I grew up in Washington, Idaho, and Montana in the forest.
Yeah.
So living in Shasta County allows me to be in the forest and away from snow. And that's like the first thing I fell in love with Shasta County was just, the forest. But Whiskeytown Lake is what will always keep me in Shasta County.
Almost always away from snow. You get a little bit in Redding sometimes.
Sometimes, but I mean, I can
you're not
count.
digging out.
No, I'm not living in, Libby, Montana, where we're digging out the track to just run track and field for the spring.
Right.
That's not the type of snow that I live in now. So it's a great experience, and I love the heat in the summer too. So that's helpful for me. But yeah.
So how did you, what kind of education do you have to get into the position that you're looking at?
Honestly, so I started out playing college volleyball at a junior college, and then got pregnant pretty quick and dropped out of college.
Okay.
And so I went in as extra help. So to be the county clerk and registrar, you really only need to be a registered voter in the county. I did continue to take college classes, but also my husband really focused on his career as a teacher and was going through schooling and working full-time and coaching full-time and going to school. And so having 3 kids and being also a supervisor in elections office didn't allow me to actually finish my degree either.
Yeah.
So focusing on my family first was where I ended. But I've got certified in multiple different certifications for elections officials. So there's a national program called CIRA that I am a certified elections official, and there's a state program called Cal Rio where I became a certified elections official. That program was in 2016 and CIRA was in 2022.
Okay. And so that's specifically for the elections official. That's the registrar of voters role, right?
Yes.
Now, I think that people in this position, so with Shasta County, it's called the clerk and registrar of voters, right?
Yeah, county clerk and registrar of voters.
And then I think in Butte County it's clerk recorder and registrar of voters. What is a recorder versus the clerk? What is that aspect of the job versus the registrar of voters?
Yeah, so the registrar of voters is all elections.
Okay.
Like election administration everything. So from, creating the voter file and maintaining the voter registration database, to counting all the local ballots.
Okay.
So that's, the registrar of voters.
Yeah.
The recorder is responsible for documents that need to be recorded and filed within the county according to law. And I am not a recorder, therefore I don't know all the fine details of it, but it's a lot different experience than county clerk. County clerk is responsible to issue typical documents, like issuing a marriage license, issuing a fictitious business statement, giving people their oath of office when they become a notary. Those are the different things the county clerk is responsible for.
Okay.
It used to be part of the Superior Court, but it got separated out from that. And so now it's specific to those, professional filings that happen within the county.
Okay. So I would take it that there is probably a lot less controversy and attention on the clerk role, right?
Supposedly, yes.
So tell me, what are some of the challenges with that people might not know about or think about?
Some of the key challenges we had were when people would choose to change their name. And one of the clerks, we typed their new name in incorrectly, and then because then you're going to court to fix that.
Right.
So there could be little things, but it's not it's not the huge amount of controversy that can come up with elections. Right. Elections wasn't very controversial for a long time either.
Okay. So how long have you been with the county clerk's office?
I was there for 17 years.
So the whole time that you've been here in this area, it's been with this job, essentially. For the
I
most
had
part.
one job before that as part-time. My daughter, when my husband and I first moved to Reading, our daughter was 3 months old, and so I worked part-time when we were very first moved here.
Yeah.
But I was also focusing on being a mother to my 4.5-year-old and my 3-month-old baby.
Okay.
And then I started working full-time in 2008 at the county clerk's office.
So back in 2008, what did we see a lot of this maybe distrust in, I don't know if it's whether there's distrust in the local elections office, but just in the voting system in general. I mean, I would guess that from the beginning of time, people have cheated things and tried to fix things their way. I don't think that this is new, that it's a possibility that there could be some sort of fraud in the elections process, but like, it was never a thing at the local level where people just didn't trust their elections. Right?
Well, so keep in mind that elections are conducted at the local level in California.
Yeah.
So Butte County conducts the elections for Butte County. Shasta County conducts the elections for Shasta County.
Right.
Trinity County Clerk conducts the elections for Trinity County.
Yeah.
And there's always been this tug of war. So if you go back to why the Help America Vote Act was implemented, and that was specifically because of the election, the presidential election of George Bush. And
Was that the hanging Chad
the
thing?
hanging Chad,
Yeah.
and Al Gore.
Right.
So, I mean, that legislation was implemented where they put the voting systems into place in California, and we had to change from that hanging Chad, that punch card ballot,
Right.
to a voting system card after 2004. Because of the Help American Vote Act, which was
Right.
federal legislation. So that was put in place because one party was complaining, and what party lost that election was not the Republicans, it was the Democrats that lost that election. And then even in 2006, there was a huge push with the voting system. The machine ate my ballot. I don't know if you remember
Right.
that or were part of that, but that was definitely not the Republicans at that point. But there has always been this kind of tug of war in election denial. It's just continued to get more and more intense.
Yeah, right. Do you think that there is validity to some of these concerns? Because when I hear people out and I hear like just learning what is a voter roll, right? And like what are some possible ways that things could go wrong that isn't the election official's fault, but sort of like, oh, could a ballot show up in the mail for somebody who attended college and they no longer live there and they're actually voting in their home state now, but now there's this ballot that's like a valid ballot that somebody else could technically fill out, and how would the elections office know?
Yeah, so there's always checks and balance. So first and foremost, I trust my coworkers, I trust my neighbors that they're going to do the right thing. And so first and foremost is getting that trust and putting that in play and helping people understand what the laws are and the process is. Elections are ran by the community, the local community. You need hundreds of volunteers, and you need hundreds of thousand people to vote and continue to vote, because the more people that vote, the more likely that you're going to have the governance that the community as a whole wants. And so when you have people complaining, hey, I'm receiving a ballot that it's not, it's my son that moved to Utah.
Right.
And it's his ballot.
Right.
Well, guess what? Your responsibility as part as a community member is to send that ballot back to the elections office and make sure that we do what we can to follow law to make that voter inactive and then canceled as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But I can't, as elections official that's responsible for the voter rolls, I have to have a written notification from the voter before they can be canceled out of the system.
Okay.
And I'm not going to get that unless that voter initiates that process.
So that's the protocol. So like if you were to, say you moved into a new apartment and you get a ballot in the mail that's from like a former resident or whatnot, a former tenant, you need to get that other person to send?
No, you need to send
or
that ballot
you could do
back.
it. You could do it.
Just say no longer lives
could-
here, not at this address.
Okay, it's as simple as that.
It's as
You
simple
don't have
as
to come
that.
in person or
No,
anything.
you can make a phone
Just
call.
like, okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
let them know. But the most efficient way to make that happen is keep it in the outside envelope, keep it sealed up.
Okay.
It even says on the outside of the envelope, save taxpayer dollars by returning this ballot if this person no longer lives here.
Yeah.
It says that in the voter information guide. Those are all notices that are required by law to have on, both the envelope and the voter information guide.
So aside from relying on the community to report like those ballots that might be no longer accurate,
Yeah.
What are some other things that people, because I know you've heard it all, you attend the supervisors meetings, what are some other concerns that people have brought forward that like the elections office is either actively addressing or that people in the community can help to address?
Yeah, so there's a lot of concerns about chain of custody and processes in place. So chain of custody is something that helps us track the ballots from the time they get mailed out to the voter till when they come back. So if you look at your vote by mail envelope, you'll have the voter's name, voter's information, what election it's supposed to be for. There's very specific information on there that helps us track the ballot. If we've had to mail a voter out a second ballot because they've moved and then didn't inform us until after, it was, already processed and sent to them. And so we know that, and there's checks and balances in place. For example, if we mail out a voter a second ballot, that first ballot is voided in the system, but it's still there. We still know that we issued it to them. And then we're going to verify the signature and make sure it matches. And so when people register to vote now, most of them are doing it either online or at the DMV. And it's pulling in your signature from your driver's license into our system. So we're going to compare the signature on file, which we have is most likely your signature from your driver's license, to the signature that's on your envelope before it can even be counted.
Yeah.
In Shasta County, that's visually done by hand. It's not done through a machine that will check to make sure it matches by following certain points.
Okay.
Staff are trained to check check signatures and how to do it and what to look for, and then they confirm it's correct. And then we're able to process that ballot.
So every election, you said that there are just so many volunteers, right? I would take it, though, you can't just say, hey, I want to help. Do you have to have some sort of training or go through?
So poll workers typically in Shasta County receive about 3.5 to 4 hour training.
Okay.
And then they typically are a registered voter, and there's and a U.S. citizen or legally allowed to be here.
Yeah.
There's certain requirements that we have to have. People that speak certain languages in California at the polling places, and so there's other requirements in law in place there. But basically, anyone 16 or older that would want to be a volunteer at the elections office, we would pull them in, train them, get them signed up, and they would serve on election day.
Okay. And do you feel like you've had, especially in the last few years with a more vocal group in Shasta County, either feeling distrustful or concerned about the elections process, have you seen those people step up to volunteer?
I've seen them to step up to volunteer as observers.
Yeah.
The hard part is making sure that people understand that all of the volunteers are required to be nonpartisan. I don't want to know outwardly
Okay.
into the people. So that's one of the key things about getting people to trust who's actually counting your vote, is making sure that you're nonpartisan and you're not sharing concerns, you're not sharing what your political beliefs are.
Right.
Because that will impact people's willingness to actually show up and vote.
Okay.
And so making sure that happens. So some of them would step up and volunteer, and some of them wouldn't.
So does that go as far as if I say I wanted to be a volunteer, but I've been very vocal on my social media pages about how I feel politically, would that maybe disqualify me?
That might disqualify you, but more likely it would be first we'd give you a chance and say, hey, we see this, can you show up and be nonpartisan? Because technically we don't always have enough volunteers. This upcoming election, this June election, is the hardest election to recruit volunteers to work. People are It's finals week, so you're losing anyone 16 or older because they're prepping for finals or they're graduating from high school.
Yeah.
People are heading off to graduations, weddings. It's really hard to get volunteers, and so we want as many people as possible. And we also want that variety as well. So even if they're vocal, but if they're a school board member and they're on ballot, we're not going to have them work that election.
Yeah.
Or if they're promoting a recall or a measure, then definitely our office would be like, yeah, you can't work this election, but you can work the next one.
Okay.
So.
And yeah, we've heard a lot about the election observer, the people's right to have that, and to, in the name of transparency. What has your experience been with people who come and they say they want to be election observers, and how has that impacted the process?
Generally, the process as well. They'll come in, they'll ask questions, they'll understand why we're doing what we're doing, and that process has worked really well in the past.
Yeah.
In fact, so much so, we would allow people up close and have tours. And I conducted tours throughout every single election throughout my career.
Yeah.
So since I became the assistant county clerk in 2018, we did tours for every election for people that wanted to have questions about that. So we want them to have up close as possible and access. Get to a point now where they're impeding on the process, asking staff too many questions, not allowing them to get the work done. Because there's a balance there
Yeah.
between having open and accessible elections, but also getting the work done.
Right.
We have a time limit to count ballots, and the faster we can count ballots, the more likely people are to trust the results of the election. And so that was always our goal, is to efficiently count ballots and also have observers watch the process.
Have you noticed it's just a few people who are maybe holding things up more so than being, helping transparency? Or is it kind of like a lot of people?
So typically in Shasta County, there's a really local, loud minority, less than 200 voters. And Shasta County has 115,000 registered voters on their books. And so you would see this really loud, vocal community step up and be really loud. And then that number is slowly dropped and dropped and dropped. And so it's even smaller than what it was in 2022. But it's a very small number of people that are really loud and vocal. But it's still important that we listen to those really loud and vocal people, but also get a balance between the quiet majority who want their vote counted, who want to focus on feeding their family, going to the baseball game with their kid, and want to trust the election results are accurate without having it to be a tug of war in front of their face. And so it's hard to get that balance and making sure we're serving everybody in the community.
What do you think about the Hart machines versus Dominion?
They're both great machines.
Yeah.
They're different. The Hart machines, obviously we had an issue with the overspray, and that's a direct result of the software and the scanning, but it's still a good machine. It can still accurately produce results as long as ballots are printed perfectly.
Yeah.
The Dominion machines are great. I have longer experience with that software, and they're actually not called Dominion. They were bought out by a new company. It's called Liberty Vote. For future reference, I don't know if, but they're both great machines. They both accurately count ballots. They have great teams that work with them, and they're needed.
Yeah.
Shasta
You
County.
don't think we could do a hand count?
In Shasta County in 2024, the machines counted more than 1.5 million bubbles. So to do that accurately in time, I mean, there's 54 different ballot types. 57 different ballot types, 54 different contests on the ballot. It was a 2-page ballot, 11 local measures, which is the highest I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I think the max I've seen before that was 3 for an election. We had 11 local measures in 2024. There was a lot on the ballot. And it was very important that those are counted accurately, especially for those local races. When you get down to school board, when you don't, or, I go own a community services district, when it's vote for 2 and there's 500 votes for it. So, I mean, it's a big deal.
Have they done studies that compare the accuracy rate of like a hand count versus one of these machines?
Yeah, so we actually, when we were requested, the majority of the Board of Supervisors asked the Shasta County guest, Kathy Darlene Allen, to hand count ballots. We started doing the work to time study and see how long it would take to count ballots and how accurate you were. So a hand count is actually necessary to audit the machine count.
Okay.
Just like a machine count would be necessary to audit the hand count.
Sure.
And so it's a balance about trusting the results, but also having those checks and balances in place and whatever is behind that. So there is studies behind that. It is less accurate because machines are made, there's no bias.
Yeah.
They're counting a square.
They don't get tired, sleepy,
They don't get tired.
hungry.
They get sleepy, but they can be nitpicky when it comes to ballot overspray.
Okay.
We've seen that.
Yeah,
but they still accurately counted the ballots.
Right.
When the overspray wasn't there.
Yeah.
So they do the work in a very efficient manner, and allows for transparency. And also allows us to have checks and balances in place. For instance, Dominion, every time you scanned a ballot in, it took an image of that ballot. So if something were to go back and we needed to see why the machine counted that way, you can go look at the image and say, oh, well, this person wrote in pencil.
Right.
So the machine didn't pick up what they wrote.
Got it.
This person didn't follow the directions.
Yeah.
So, or this machine, they stopped using Sharpies midday because the voters were complaining, and the scanner was picking up the ink from the ballpoint pen and putting a line through that versus using the Sharpie and letting it dry quickly and then scanning it through and there's no line. So there's things that you need to know and understand about the machines and work through them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your experience, like say first of all, when you took over temporarily for Kathy Darlene Allen, in terms of, you don't like to use the word took over, but you were doing the job, right? What was your experience at that time working with the Board of Supervisors that was currently there?
Yeah, so the week that Kathy had told me she was no longer coming in was the same week I was told by the administration team and a specific board member that I would have to lay off 5 of my staff the week prior to Christmas and let them know. So
Financial reasons or reasons of?
The hand count law that was passed, and so technically we no longer need them. Thankfully, I was able to produce them with the budget and what we actually had versus what, they thought we were spending, and what we needed, and we were able to fix that through attrition and other things as well. But my very first experience that very first week was standing up for the staff and fighting for them, so I didn't have to lay off or demote members of my team, because AB 969 was passed.
Okay. And then, things move forward and you wanted that position long term, right?
Yeah.
Tell me just how did that all go down for you?
For me, I wanted that long-term position, and I wanted to serve the community because I've been in the job since 2008.
Yeah.
And I started as extra help,
Yeah.
and I worked my way up. I wouldn't have stuck around this whole time and then having to train somebody else how to do this job, how to do this work, how to know what the voters need, how to understand why we've made decisions we've made throughout the 17 years I've been here.
Right.
Why the laws changed, helping understand all that process. And so training somebody wasn't an option for me at first. I wanted that job.
Right.
However, when I went through the process and they appointed Tom Toller, it was very quickly, I felt like the right thing to do was just stick around and train him. And to prove that it wasn't about me, that the elections weren't about me. This is about my service to the community that I love, that I chose to raise my family in. And our community deserves trust in elections, accuracy in elections. And if the Board of Supervisors thought I needed a different leader at that time, which is what they said to me on the mic, then that's probably what they think I needed. Because I knew it wasn't about me and my skill set. It was about decisions that I made to follow the law in the past. And the Board of Supervisors wasn't very happy about those decisions.
Okay. So give me some more specific examples of that if you can.
There was a lot of pressure in our office to share the signatures of the recall election, of who signed the recall petition. And according to law, those are under seal and nobody gets to see that. And so there was a lot of pressure from me, directed towards me.
Yeah.
Very significant pressure that you won't get appointed if there's not more transparency and directly those signatures on the petition. But my goal was to respect the voters and protect the voters, just like it is now.
And you worked alongside Tom for a while.
Yeah.
Do you know if those were ever handed over or disclosed?
They were kept in a secure location until the retention. The retention's really short on those petitions, so they were kept in a secure location and sealed up until that petition. So my understanding is they were not disclosed.
Okay. So then at a certain point, you found out that you didn't have a job anymore.
Yeah.
Tell me how that all transpired and what your reaction was.
Yeah, so shortly, I think it was right after Labor Day, or not Memorial Day, I was called up to County Council's office, and County Council handed me a memo with Mr. Curtis sitting across the room. That basically said, according to personnel rule, whatever it was, you're an at-will employee and you're let go as of now.
And it was right after Clint Curtis was appointed after
yeah.
Tom Toller left.
Yes, correct.
Right.
Yeah. So at that point, I no longer had a job. I walked out of the office, wasn't able to go and get my stuff. I had to have my staff bring up my purse to me. And
You were just stunned?
I wouldn't say I was stunned because I had media reaching out to me, asking me if I got fired the week before.
Oh.
So I knew it was coming.
Oh.
But it was still a shock. It was still frustrating.
And did you ask questions about why? And they basically just said you're an at-will employee?
I didn't ask why. I was informed that I had the option to retire, which I don't have the option to retire. I'm not close to retirement age.
Yeah.
I have enough years of service, but I don't have the option to retire. And I just wasn't interested. There was no point in me asking questions in that room.
Yeah.
It just was working with county council, and they're handing me a memo that I'm fired.
Yeah. Okay. So before that, though, with Tom, you had that whole experience, right? And you got through, was it a primary election?
With Tom, we went through the general election.
I'm sorry, the general election
Yeah.
together, that's right. And that was when there was the ink overspray issue. But other than that, things went pretty well.
Things went pretty well. The ink overspray issue was a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, we duplicated 90,000 ballot cards, so that's more than half of the ballot cards that
Yeah.
we had. We had to
Okay.
duplicate. That's a really big deal and not okay.
So aside from all of the extra work that it took to fix that problem, right? Do you feel like you were able to get an accurate vote?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the results.
The results were right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Tom left. So you had two people leave, essentially, as you were, their assistant. Did Tom, is there anything that you could talk about, like in terms of why he moved on?
Tom had some health issues that I don't feel comfortable sharing
Yeah.
because that's not my story
Right.
to say. But he did the best he could.
Yeah.
And he worked really hard. And he brought a different style of leadership to the group. And then also, he came in a little skeptic.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really trust.
Right.
But then he saw our operations. He worked with the staff and he understood, no, they're doing what they should be doing
Yeah.
according to law, and we're going to follow the law. So he was very aware of what was happening, and he had to move on
Yeah.
due to health
Right.
issues.
Have you heard, I don't know if you're friends with Kathy, but I mean, is she doing all right?
She's
Any
doing
idea?
right.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
she's doing great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody, it's so hard because when you hear that from, I think people, they look at their elected officials and it's like, we're not personally friends, but we feel like we know them, right? And you hear things like health issues and people are concerned.
Yeah.
And so they, wish for the best for them.
Well, good people normally don't want people to get sick or have cancer or have heart issues.
Yeah.
Like, that's never something
Yeah.
that we should want anyone. Or I guess that's just
Yeah.
how I
Yeah.
was raised. Like, you help them out.
Yeah.
You be their friend and support them through that time.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, so you are running, you want this job. People in the community know you. I've had some current county supervisors on, and I've asked them if they wanted to share their thoughts from working with you before, and what did they think. And I mean, it sounds like from the supervisors I've spoken with, that they've thought, hey, Joanna could do a great job, and have a great working relationship. What is your thoughts about the current board in place, and if you were to get elected, do you feel like you could work well with the people in place?
Honestly, I can work well with anybody. I've never said I couldn't work well with people. I've always been willing to work well and understand why, they have the beliefs they have and what I can do to help them understand the process, the laws, and the procedures, but then also what I can learn from them.
Yeah.
And I've learned something from everybody that I work with throughout this community, whether it's board of supervisors or a poll worker or my, the line staff that works so hard
Yeah.
to ensure the results of the election are accurate. I've learned a lot from everybody, and so I will always do my best to work well with anybody, regardless of who they are and what they have said about me in the past or what they've tried to do to my character in the past.
Right, okay. So there's a group of people in Shasta County, or at least one person who came forward with this petition, right? And there's an effort on the ballot that would change the rules for voter ID and some different voting requirements specific to Shasta County. Now, we know that that doesn't align with the state law, and it's kind of tied up in a legal process right now in the courts, right? So we're not sure if it's going to be on the ballot or not. But let's say it does make it to the ballot. What do you want people to know who might vote yes on that?
To really read it and understand it before voting yes. I mean, that's what I would do for anything. Before you vote yes or no on any type of contest, you need to do your research and understand it. There's different laws in play, whether it's state or federal law on there, that will be impacted. And election officials have to follow law. They can't just make up something because they want to drive 70 down the road. They have to actually follow the laws in place to make something happen. And the laws need to be clear and worded in a way that election officials can follow. So if you're reading and you don't understand why the measure is written that way, or you don't understand how an elections official is going to follow that, be aware that that could cause issues in court. It could cause issues with your ballot being counted accurately and efficiently. And so that's what I want people to know is read both sides, do your own research, do your own homework, understand it.
With this specific one that I'm talking about, I'm correct in my understanding, right, that it's like, so if voters were to approve it, the county would be in a weird position, right? Because technically it would become okay in Shasta County, and then we could just maybe get sued, or
Well,
what would happen?
So the way state law is written and the way the California Constitution is written, it gives the California legislatures the ability to create laws in regards to elections.
Okay.
It doesn't. If you want to change the state law for elections, you have to do that through the statewide initiative petition.
Okay.
And that a local measure will not change state law.
So it could be a ballot measure, but you would need to do it and have everybody in the state vote on it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, to change
But
state
like,
law.
what if Shasta County's was passed? What does the county do?
So if you're going to look, it will immediately get put into court. So similar right
Okay.
now, there's litigation options either before it goes on the ballot or after
Okay.
it goes on the ballot. So if you look to that Huntington Beach case that happened, there wasn't litigation until after that law was passed. And then there was a state law change, which made it even, more complex.
Right.
So it went all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And then, so how much money was spent on that process going all the way up to the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
So right now we have a really brave person named Jane Doe, which people have accused that of being me. I want to make that clear. I am not Jane Doe. I don't have time for that, nor do I want to get in the middle of something so political on
Yeah.
Shasta County's ballot. I'm a nonpartisan candidate. I want to stay nonpartisan. So understanding the laws and facts with that measure and how that litigation can impact whether it goes on ballot and is passed or whether it doesn't go on ballot
Okay.
is going to be,
Yeah.
my interest in this.
Okay.
It's not telling people which way to vote.
Right.
So, or helping them understand and where to research and what to understand.
Sure.
Because it's not just federal or state law it breaks. There's also federal laws it breaks. Specifically with the voter registration database, we have to, by law, are connected to the statewide database.
Yeah.
And the state communicates with us, and we communicate with the state in a way that if someone votes in Butte County, I know not to count their ballot in Shasta County if they attempt to vote.
Yeah.
And so those are checks and balances that we have in place that work really well. And that measure is saying, hey, we don't want to be connected to that anymore.
Okay.
We don't want you to mail every voter a ballot. Well, state law requires us to mail every voter a ballot, but also doesn't give us instructions on how to mail ballots for those that are in the military or overseas, which that's a federal law
Yeah.
that we have to be compliant on. And we have to mail ballots out and get those to those voters between E-60, which is 60 days prior to election, and 45 days prior to election.
Yeah.
So it really does intermingle with both federal and state laws and
Yeah.
impacts on the laws and the processes that elections officials have to follow
Yeah.
to count ballots
Okay.
and to ensure that the voters in Shasta County have the same type of service as the voters in Los Angeles County.
Okay. So what's the deal with voter ID? It seems like such a simple thing, but it's such a controversial thing. Like, why would there be a problem with asking someone to show an ID when they come to vote?
So I'm going to be very clear about this. Like, anything that you can do to build trust in the election is a good thing. And I will always say that, whether it's using paper ballots instead of just machine, or something that provides chain of custody or visual observation. Those are all good things that impact the trust in the election. In the past, the California legislatures, this is their opinion, not mine, have said it's like a poll tax. However, there's other times that they've required ID for all different other sorts of things. But it's just finding that balance. And the majority of voters nationwide, like there's been research on it. They trust voter ID, and they like 80% of the voters. So that includes a large number of Democrats really want voter ID.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of putting the process in place in a way that both parties can agree on it and moving forward. Because way law is written, if it requires a passport, only 50% of our U.S.
Right.
citizens have an active passport
Right.
now.
Yeah.
That's half of the voters.
That sounds crazy. A
Yeah.
passport, it's like you need a passport to travel internationally. You should
Right.
need the ability to travel internationally in order
Yeah.
to vote. But
yeah.
you think like some sort of
Yeah, but
identification
some
card.
sort of identification, proof of citizenship.
Yeah.
It's really important that voters trust the process.
Yeah.
And it is also important to note that where you see voter fraud is not, U.S. citizens are already the ones that are voting.
Yeah.
And that's been proven over, researching and understand. But are there ways that people can try to get around that? Yes. But do we have checks and balances in place? Yes. Can we have more checks and balances in places and make it more secure? Yes, we can.
Yeah.
But let's find a balance here, and let's work together to find something that's a nonpartisan way to move forward with this.
Okay.
Let's advocate together.
So if you win and this is the county elections office is your office to run, what do you see doing differently in order to just, get more public trust and to keep the good, but bring in more trust?
I want to get us back to where we were prior to 2023, where we had tabulators at the polling place. There's been proven results in Placer County where they're allowing people to take their vote by mail ballot in, scan it in using their tabulator, and they're seeing more and more people choose that option. Versus dropping it in the drop box or dropping it in the mail, because the voters are actually watching that ballot be counted and they're trusting
so you
that
can see your vote be counted and see that it's reading it correctly.
They can see that it was counted, because we can't legally produce the results of what the voter did. The voter hand marked their own ballot. They're going to move it in, and then the machine will be ding, you voted, up one more count. But the watching that happen builds the trust in the voters. It also allows the elections officials to count ballots faster, because the majority of people return their ballot close or near to election day, starting 4 days before election day. Through election day, that's when we receive the majority of ballots. And if you return it to the envelope, we're still having to verify the signature and then open it and then count it. So that takes time. And that's what leads to the longer and longer wait on results, is the timeline when people return their ballot. And so I want to make sure that people understand and are educated where we're at. One thing that I learned is in 2020 and 2022, we could have provided more outreach. We could have helped people understand how to trust elections more, what we are already doing in the office to build trust in elections. And I think it would have, I don't know if it would have calmed some of the really vocal people, but it would help the majority of the community understand, yes, we can trust the results. Yes, we can trust this process. And help, be that shield.
I remember hearing some weird controversy over a seal being put on a door, and can you refresh my memory about what that accusation was? And
so we were trying to leave for the night, and for some reason, we have every door in the elections office in Shasta County, you have to open with a card reader. And it documents who goes in and out that door. And then there's also policy in place where if there's a room with a ballot on there, you can't go in there. And then there's another policy in place that says after closing hours, you can't be in the office alone. If you forget your purse in there, too bad, so sad. Bring a friend with you that works in the office that's also sworn in. Come and get your purse. Tell your supervisor what's happening and then leave. You can't stick around. And so there was a controversy in 2022. The day after Election Day, we had people that would not leave our office until we put a sticker seal on our door. So that they can verify that nobody went back in.
I see.
And that was the same election where somebody had put a trail cam in the back of the office on the back door.
Surreptitiously, nobody knew about it who was working there?
Right, we didn't know about it till...
And you just found it being broadcast?
We just found it and we saw the trail cam. But what they didn't know is we had installed cameras earlier that month, so there's already cameras pointing at the front door. They could have asked for the PRA on that and seen that nobody went in and out of the office. And the day after Election Day, my staff were exhausted. They worked 19 hours sometimes the day before. They're going home at 4:30 if possible. I don't want staff working past 5. They're tired. It's been a long 29 days, and then we still had 27 more days to finish counting ballots, and they needed a rest. And so I was trying to get staff out, and the observers chose not to leave that day.
So that's something inevitably, though, as there continues to be a little bit of skepticism in the community, whether it's a lot or just a little bit. That's probably for the foreseeable future going to be something that your office will have to continue to work around and deal with and work at. So again, if you win, what else would you do?
So
what are your goals?
I had actually worked since 2019 to slowly make, I call it baby steps, the strategic planning is really what I was doing to slowly make it so that we can utilize our resources. So keeping in mind, the local elections office, they use general fund dollars. There's no specific funding that's consistently coming from the state or the federal government. So the same amount of money that we're using is also getting taken away from the sheriff's office. And so we were doing strategic planning to add in more cameras, add in more processes, add in more visual tools to make it safe. And our office is old. We've been in the same office since 1978. If you can think about how elections have changed from 1978 until 2026, it's a huge difference. The voter registration file is no longer in a bunch of metal cans. It's on a computer server in a database, but the voting equipment is a lot more intense and requires a lot of space and room. And then everybody wants to watch the process. And that's valid, I think, having people watch the process, but doing it in a way that they're watching the whole process. For example, some of the processes that were implemented by Mr. Curtis, he wanted to film the ballots. Well, he's only filming 10% of the ballots, maybe, because he's only filming those that happened on election day. He's not filming any of the people that turn in their ballot by mail.
Right.
And he's only showing part of the process, but saying it's more secure because he's showing part of the whole process, but he's not. He's only showing part of the process. And I want to be able to use, and it was expensive, $130,000 he requested for a temporary setup. It wasn't a permanent setup. So he set it up temporary, and then he has to pay for that to happen again. And it's expensive. Elections are not cheap.
Yeah.
I always say elections aren't cheap.
Right. They're
expensive. Getting a voting system certified is expensive, millions and millions of dollars just for the state of California.
Yeah.
So we have to pay a lot of money for this equipment that's been tested and secure and already provides observable ways, but we also have to keep it secure. So just finding that and continuing that balance, building up on the process we made. The reason why he could implement a lot of those cameras is because that same fiscal year, I finally was able to secure a server to host all those cameras. We were limited prior in 2024. I had maxed out our capacity for cameras that could be hosted. But because I was able to purchase a new server between November 2024 and May before I was let go of 2025, he had the ability to move forward. So we were continuously making steps to make it more secure and more observable at the same time. Finding that balance and to building up on that, building up the work that Kathy and I had started, and then Tom and I continued, but then also on the work that Clint has, tried to move forward as best he could.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd want people to know who are just trying to decide who to vote for between you and, I believe, Clint is going to run for re-election?
Yeah.
Or, well, he was appointed, but run for election.
For election. So I'm here for the community. I'm here to protect people's votes and keep them secure. I'm not a politician. That's the last thing I wanted to do. No way was it ever growing up and saying, hey, I want to be a politician. I'm a public servant, and that's what I vow to be, is serving people, helping them understand that their vote is counted accurately and efficiently and fairly in a nonpartisan way, and that's my goal. And to advocate for this community, I can do that in a way that I don't think anyone else can with the experience that I have for 17 years, the resources I have, and the trust that I've been building in the elections community in general. Our community needs me to step up and be the voice for everybody in a nonpartisan way, and that's my goal.
Okay. Do you feel pretty good about your chances?
I will never say, yeah, I'm going to win this election. I feel good that I'm putting my best foot forward, that I'm showing the community who I am, and that if I were to choose who I would want to vote for, I would choose integrity and honesty and somebody that knows this community well. And I think I am that person.
Yeah.
And my hope is that people can see the truth out there. There's a lot of misinformation and misrepresentation about who I am as a person. I'm well-grounded, and I hope people can see that.
Are you pretty accessible to people? Like I know that we're getting close to the June primary, but like if people want to kind of connect with you more, is there a way to?
Yeah, they can go to my website, joannaforcountyclerk.com, fill out, send an email. I am working in Trinity County, and so I am there 3 days a week, but I make myself available when I can, and will reach out to people as soon as I can.
Yeah.
Or a member of my team will as well.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, Joanna, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been fun.
Thanks for listening today. I decided to offer this podcast after enough of you let me know that you wanted a deeper dive into certain stories than you get on our TV broadcasts. We elect certain people to represent our voice, but who are they really? My hope is that this podcast answers that question. I love your feedback, and I want to know who you'd like to hear from next. Just fill out that comment section and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Spotify.